I'm going to go ahead and address each one of these verdict forms separately. The first verdict form I have is the State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael. Mr. McMichael, please stand. In the Superior Court of Glenn County, State of Georgia, the State of Georgia versus Travis McMichael, case number CR 000433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. I'm going to ask that whoever just made an outburst be removed from the court, please. As this court has indicated, I ask that there be no outbursts in the court, and I expect as much from the gallery. Please respect the court's desire for this as we move forward. If you feel like you need to make a comment or otherwise demonstrate with respect to the verdict, I do ask that you step out of the courtroom now. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty. Dated this 24th day of November, 2021, signed by the foreperson. Have a seat. As to Gregory McMichael. In the Superior Court of Glenn County, the State of Georgia versus Greg McMichael, case number CR 20000433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, not guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant, Greg McMichael, guilty. This 24th day of November, 2021, signed by the foreperson. As to William R. Bryan. In the Superior Court of Glenn County, State of Georgia versus William R. Bryan, case number CR 20000433. Jury verdict form. Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, William R. Bryan, not guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, William R. Bryan, not guilty. Count 3, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, William R. Bryan, guilty. Count 4, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, William R. Bryan, guilty. Count 5, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, William R. Bryan, guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan not guilty. Count 7, aggravated assault. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 8, false imprisonment. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Count 9, criminal attempt to commit a felony. We, the jury, find the defendant William R. Bryan guilty. Signed this 24th day of November by the foreperson. Go ahead and have a seat. Court having read the verdicts and accepted the verdicts, anything from the state?
No, Your Honor, nothing from the state.
Anything from the defense?
We ask the jury be polled, Your Honor.
Do all defendants ask the jury be polled? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask each of you individually a set of 2 questions with respect to the verdicts that I have just read. If you could please respond when you hear your juror number. Juror number 1, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
Juror number 2, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
I can't. Okay, 2. Juror number 3, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes.
Juror number 4, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
Juror number 5, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 7, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 8, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 9, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 10, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 11, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Juror number 12, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, Your Honor.
And juror 16, you have heard the verdicts read. Were these your verdicts then, and are these your verdicts now?
Yes, sir.
The jury has been polled. Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
From Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Mr. Bryan?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, what that means with the court having accepted your verdict is that your role in this case is now at an end. What we're going to do today is I'm going to have all of you, the panel and the 3 alternates, go ahead and retire into the jury room. I'm going to address a couple matters logistically with you in the jury room once we get done here. But before we do that, and before I excuse you, I do want to thank you publicly for your service here in Glenn County. It has been a long trial, and I appreciate the fact that you have been attentive. You've listened to the evidence, and that is what we ask in this court. It's a very simple ask in a very complex way, so it's appreciated. When we all got together, I say we all got together, when we got together at different times, I said that I was going to thank you a number of times and how I was going to tell you I do truly appreciate your time here. Hopefully you understand why I said that when we started. I do also hope that you got a little bit of an insight into what goes on in a trial and maybe understand a little bit more of how important it is for members of our community to come down and be part of this process and serve as jurors in this community. So again, thank you for that service. And I'll come address you all in just a moment. You are excused.
All right, for the jury.
All right, there we go. All 3 defendants found guilty on murder charges. Let's go right outside of the courthouse here. You're seeing the celebrations there as the news was being delivered there from family and friends there of Ahmaud Arbery. Let's listen right here on Live Now from Fox. All right, so that was just moments ago there, as you're seeing right outside of the courthouse being played out there. Inside, a much different look here from the defense team and the defendants after all three men found guilty of murder charges. Let's bring in once again, as we'll be taking a look here at the different shots available to us right here on Live Now from Fox. But let's bring in right now again our legal analyst, Ben Taylor. Thank you again for joining us and staying by on this. So here we go. So we found what the verdict was. All three found guilty there of the murder counts there, but Travis McMichael, a clean sweep there, found guilty on all charges.
Yes, that's what a lot of people expected. Travis McMichael was the one who actually, pulled the trigger and shot Ahmaud Arbery. Because of that, you saw that the jury found him guilty of every single count of murder. The other counts, as you saw for the other two men, they were found guilty also. However, there was a few not guilties involved. But the person who was Travis McMichael, who actually showed and pulled the trigger in this case, the jurors found him guilty of every single count. And like we discussed earlier, the video was the key piece of evidence. They watched the video, it was on tape. And the defense's argument was self-defense, was doing a citizen's arrest. And the jurors must have not bought the defense's argument in this case based on the verdict that we have as a guilty verdict. If they would have bought the defense's argument of a citizen's arrest or self-defense, you would have seen a not guilty verdict. But here, every single man was found guilty of at least one of the murder charges. And now they'll be facing sentencing in the next couple of months.
And when we saw the first charge and count for Travis McMichael, there was an outburst right behind him, and that person had to be escorted out there. There was warnings against that, and that's something a little bit different that we didn't see in the Rittenhouse verdict.
Yes, I mean, this has been a very highly emotional trial, and a lot of family members and friends have been attending the courtroom. I know the defense attorney was trying to ask for a mistrial in regards to families and friends and certain pastors showing up to the trial. So a lot of emotions happen in this trial. You heard an outcry in the courthouse. In there, you heard the judge did address that because the judge wants to keep everything even keel, no matter if you're for the defense or you're for the prosecution or what side of your own. The judge has to remain even keel in their courtroom. So that's why the judge did mention that. But this has been a highly emotional trial. So sometimes the defendant's family have an outcry because they know that their family member is facing a life in prison. And a lot of times the victim's family have outcries and outbursts in trials because they know that they finally feel like they've gotten justice in this case.
And now, Ben, tell our viewers now what happens from now until sentencing. What happens in that process? Does for the sentencing, does the defendants, do they get a whole new defense team or no? Is it?
Yeah, usually it's the same defense team that you saw in the courtroom defending. All three of them will be doing the sentencing. But prior to the sentencing, they can have what you call a motion for a mistrial or a motion for a new trial. So tonight or later on this week, you might see a motion submitted by all three defense attorneys to try to get their client a brand new trial based upon any evidence that they felt wasn't presented, based upon any mistakes that they felt that the prosecution may have made or the judge might have made. So they'll see a motion for a new trial. After the motion for the new trial is either granted or not granted, if it's denied, then you proceed to sentencing. The judge will set a sentencing date. Maybe all three defendants will be sentenced on the same day. And that day, you will see family members talk on behalf of the McMichaels and all the defendants. You might see friends. Also, Ahmaud Arbery, the victim here who was shot and killed, his family members can come and speak on behalf. And ultimately, it'll be up to the judge to decide what the ultimate sentence will be. Because it's a murder charge, they're looking at years in prison, even life in prison. But ultimately, the judge will decide based upon any motions for new trial, any mistrials, or we will proceed to sentencing in the next couple of weeks to months.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, how highly emotional that sentencing trial phase really is, because not only do you hear from the team of the family and the friends of Ahmaud Arbery, but then you also hear from the family members of the defense there. And how does the jury then take away from that and decide then, okay, what do we want to do then for these people for the rest of their lives?
I mean, the jurors are the ones who decide the case. So ultimately, they have a tough decision because they know that based on this decision, this will affect either the McMichaels' lives or will affect Ahmaud Arbery's life. And this is what the judge will have to do. Ultimately, at the sentencing, once they go in front of the judge has that ultimate decision on what the decision will be. So the judge will listen to both sides, the victim's family, they'll listen to the prosecution, they'll listen to the defendant's family and friends, and all the attorneys will speak. And at the end of the day, after listening to all what we call mitigation and aggravation evidence. Mitigation is to try to get a lower sentence. Aggravation, what the prosecutor does, is try to get a higher sentence. And once that is heard, the judge will make the ultimate decision, and we will know how many years each defendant will get.
And I also want to talk about, Ben, as the verdict, that first count that was being read for Travis McMichael, he really looked, everyone else, while the charges were being read out, that first one for Travis, he really looked stunned on that first one. Everyone else was kind of, they didn't really show any emotion, but for Travis, it seemed like he was a little taken aback from that first one.
Yes, as an attorney, especially a defense attorney, when you prepare your client, you try to prepare your client for the best case scenario is a not guilty, or even the worst case scenario is a guilty verdict. And here we have a guilty verdict. And no matter how much you prepare your client, the voice from the courtroom when it says guilty or not guilty can definitely affect your client. As we saw a couple weeks ago in the Rittenhouse case of not guilty, he was crying. In this case, I mean, Travis McMichael was shocked, it looked like it, right? So no matter what the verdict is, you can never prepare your client for the best or the worst. But as you see here, his emotions did come out, and it looks like he was totally shocked at the verdict. I'm sure he was hoping for a not guilty. And I think now reality has sunk in that he could be facing life in prison. So hearing that the words guilty is sinking into his head, and now his emotions did show in the courthouse.
Yeah, and what is that process now for the defendants, where they are now taken away in handcuffs and now thinking about the rest of their lives could be potentially behind bars forever?
Yes, when during the trial, if you posted a bond, you're free. You can go home, sleep in your own bed. You can go and travel if you need to, if the judge allows you during the trial. But once a guilty verdict is reached, especially in a felony case, in a felony murder case, the judge revokes all bonds. You instantly, that moment, lose your freedom, and you're handcuffed right there in the courtroom. That means you go back to a jail cell, you're booked, and you are staying there until sentencing. So the only way you can get out, the McMichaels be able to get out, will be if they file a motion for a new trial, or something happens in the appeal process years down the line, and that's the only way they get out. Or else, if the judge sentences them to life in prison in the future, they are facing life in prison.
And that is obviously a long time to think about everything that happened. You got a lot of time to think about the case that was. Let's talk a little bit about the jurors now. So the jurors just wrapped up and they reached a verdict. What can they do right now? Can they go and talk to their friends and family all about it? And is there a potential for book deals as well?
So yes, during a trial, the jurors cannot talk to anybody about the case, not even their fellow jurors. They're supposed to remain silent. They can't talk to their family members, friends, no one. They can only talk about the case during deliberation. So they've been deliberating, talking about the case, and they can't talk to anybody else except their fellow jurors. Once the verdict is reached, as we just heard, the verdict was reached, now they're free to talk to whoever they want to. They can go write a book deal, they can do TV news interviews, or they don't have to talk to anybody if they don't want to, but they are free to go talk to somebody. And this is where attorneys, we want to go talk to the jurors to interview them just to make sure that everything was done correctly. And they looked at the evidence and the rules of law to make sure, because the McMichael's attorneys, for sure, they want to talk to the jurors because they want to try to get a new trial or find some evidence on appeal that they can use based upon whether or not the jurors were biased or they heard something or used the wrong facts of the law. So that the attorneys definitely want to talk to the jurors. They can write a book deal, but however, ultimately the jurors don't have to talk to anybody. They can go home right now and just enjoy their Thanksgiving if they want, or they can go on the courthouse steps and do a press conference and do an interview if they want. It's up to them, and they're free to do whatever they want right now.
And I think as we get more into this whole social media and people wanting to know so much about a case, we see a lot more maybe that the jurors don't speak out, where, you know, when you saw the O.J. Simpson times, we heard jurors speak out. There was books being done, but now it's a little bit different. I know it's almost like the opposite, because we got social media now. People want this so fast, but they also know it comes at a big price there. Because if you get your name out there, everybody knows about you.
Of course, Mike, this is the thing about these cases. Some jurors want to become famous. This is their time to shine and be able to get their face out there and write a book or do a movie deal if they want to, because this is a high profile case where the world was watching. But then you also have some jurors who are like, hey, don't talk to me. I want to go back in peace. I want to go about in silence, because you have people on both sides of this case. Some people are going to be really upset with this verdict. Some people are going to be happy with this verdict. And the jurors know that they are a target of all types of people. So if their faces are on social media, if their names are out there in the public, it could be a danger to them too for this case. So some jurors are going to just go back. They're going to try to remain silent and remain anonymous. And they don't want any piece of this case ever again. But then you might see some jurors out there who are going to be talking on social media and giving interviews and book deals.
And now for the defendants, how much, now that they have been found guilty there on those murder charges, how much of an opportunity now, I mean, can they still speak to their defense team? Is it daily, or is it more of maybe weekly now?
It's going to be a lot harder now, because before they had cell phones. They were able to, talk to their defense attorneys every day. They could email, but you're limited when you're in the jail. So while you're in the jail, you can't really communicate as much.